take on the responsibilities for running the retirement plans, the operations of the 401k, overseeing the committees of whatever size company, excuse me, is operating it for the employees. And many CFOs are often surprised afterwards to learn that by doing that, they've actually taken on personal liability if things go wrong with the plan. So it's something that in many of my cases, only after the company has been sued does the CFO discover, whether fractional, part-time, or full-time, that as far as the law is concerned, they were in charge of it and they carry personal liability for it. So usually the advice to CFOs is to be aware of that when they step into the role, whether they're part-time, fractional CFOs or not, and make sure they're being, one, properly compensated for taking on that risk, or else two, are explicitly rejecting the risk, that it's not being assigned to them as part of their job duties.
Thank you, Steve. That sounds like a huge potential personal exposure. And I guess, what are some common mistakes that fiduciaries make that can lead to that liability exposure? And you've already alluded to two of them in terms of upfront negotiating that employment contract. But are there any other ways that they can be avoided?
Well, the biggest thing when they first take the job, and what we always tell clients when they're stepping into that role, make sure there is sufficient and appropriate insurance. Make sure that's written into your employment agreement, that the company will provide sufficient insurance, and also promise to indemnify the CFO against any losses. It's sort of a belt and suspenders approach to make sure they're protected. And then there are all sorts of sort of mechanical or operational steps they need to be careful of. In the early years of the growth of this liability, you used to often see CFOs picking their outside vendors, picking their investment advisors and so forth based on what I used to call the golf course RFP. Basically, some guy invites them out to lunch and a day of golfing, and they give them the business. And buried in that, which they didn't know, are excessive fees and other problems. So they really need to treat it like any other very serious and important aspect of their job or of the company's expenditures and investments. Run a proper procedure, proper RFP, proper investigation, bring in outside expertise when you need it, and take steps of that matter, those types to really